Jai Hind viewers, we welcome you back to another episode from our platform. Today, we have with us a very illustrious and eminent personality. Lieutenant General AB Shivane is an NDA alumnus and a decorated Armored Corps officer with over 39 years of distinguished military service. He is the former Strike Corps Commander and Director General of Mechanized Forces. The General is an expert in leadership, geostrategy, national security, defense capability building, and defense technology. He has over 150 publications, including 4 books on future warfare and a research paper on defense modernization and technology induction strategy. He has chaired several seminal studies for the Indian Army and was a consultant to the Ministry of Defense post superannuation. He is presently a board member and strategic advisor to various organizations. So, welcome to the platform, General Shivane. And my first question to you is the lessons of recent conflicts and multi domain threats warrant a review of the role and employment of tanks. Maybe have your views on that. Ashok, please.
Uh, Jayant, sir, it's a pleasure to be on the MRO forum platform of yours, and even a greater joy to be interacting with you, having served together in Army headquarters and done the NDC course, which has bonded us even more closely. Yes, now getting back to your question, I fully endorse your views that as warfare and its character is evolving, there is a need to adapt, transform to the changes of future battle space. Not only all tanks and mechanized forces, but all instruments of military power. In fact, all instruments of national power must transform and adapt themselves to the changing so that they are ready and relevant for the future. So, when you come to lessons of the recent conflict, I'm going to give you only one lesson each from the 3 recent conflicts, which is the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict, Azerbaijan and Armenia conflict of 2020. Then I'm going to give one lesson from the Russian-Ukraine war 2022, and one lesson from the Hamas-Israel war. And thereafter, what are the relevance to the Indian context? Now, these lessons, while are generic and common to all, but are, I would say, more impactful to the mechanized forces and the larger context of a combined armed warfare. So, coming on to the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict of 2020, what really emerged is one thing that I need to point out is that the new generation anti-tank platforms like drones have emerged as a potent threat. There is no doubt about it. Yes, it was overplayed by the social media because it was something which was came out in a larger domain. So the number of kills of tanks were even higher than those participated. But I think let that be there. That's part of the social media. But one thing came out that drones are here to stay and are a potent threat to the armored fighting vehicles. Yet they are surmountable because you have to adapt to the terrain, the threat, and then modify and transform your tactics and your training to make a difference and be a winning factor. So it's not the tank. I think the need was keeping in mind the terrain and the threat that was there to evolve tactics and train the tankman accordingly. So that was one lesson of it. When you come to the Ukraine conflict, 2022 one I'm talking of, one thing that emerged very clearly was combined arms team concept in a joint operational environment is a critical enabler. There are no heroes or heroines in war. There is a combined arms warfare which is manifests itself into desired capability. Therefore, initially when this war started, we saw the Russian tanks lined up like they're going on a parade, which was a sore sight, and it was pretty shocking because one has been trained in Russia on aspects of technical and tactical nature. So it was like, what the hell are they doing here? I think they were overconfident and they just lined up. And uh, you didn't see any semblance of AD, you didn't see any semblance of artillery, you didn't see any semblance of infantry, whether it was in ICBs or others. So it was just a show of strength. But when it started, response started coming, then of course they modified. The second thing which was also relevant in this was that there is need for logistic thought. Operations and logistics cannot be separated from each other. Logistics drives the operation, and operation and logistics together manifest into the sort of capabilities. The third thing that came out, the third war that was referring to is the Hamas-Israel war, which started on 7th of October 2023 with the Hamas attack. What one thing that's come out very clearly is urban warfare dynamics and the collateral damage sensitivity in a world where the war is on your TV screens and the world is entirely watching the sort of collateral damage and sensitivities are growing. Also, that short range and handheld anti-tank weapons by non-state actors uh, can play very well. Therefore, technology has to evolve. You've seen the positive effect of active protection systems of the Israelis. Uh, Tactics have to evolve. Combined arms with the infantry and armor going together. You have to look at your training aspect to avoid, as far as possible, collateral destruction. So this is one each of these things. So how do we look at from the India specific point of view? I think there are 7 things I want to mention. First, conventional wars are here to stay. Conventional wars are here to stay, and the chorus of war is not an option, is a self-inflicted injury. Political chorus in the sphere of euphoria is different, but the military has to perform in reality and thus does not ever fall for it, and we must prepare for conventional wars. Second, boots and tracks on ground matter. As long as wars are fought on ground, you may plaster the area from the sky, from the space, from the oceans, but finally, when you have territorial disputes and wars are fought on ground, then armor and infantry would require to occupy ground. It's not a parochial approach. It's a reality of that. So therefore, distance punishment must balance with the adapted ground maneuver. That is the second part of your story. Third point relevant to us is there are many discussions, that is it the obituary of the tank which has been signed? No, sir. It's not. The obituary of the tank has not yet been signed because they will continue to evolve and adapt both in technology and tactics to be an instrument of deterrence in peace and an instrument of decision in war. Tank and anti-tank game challenge has evolved from the time tanks came up in Battle of Somme. So a balanced and integrated survivability in as the threat envelope is increasing is gaining dominance, and therefore this aspect has to be kept in mind. Fourth aspect is that a tank is as good as the tankman. So don't just rubbish a tank. A tankman is as good as his tactics, his technology adoption, his training, and his integration in view of the emerging threats and in the deployment of terrains that it must system. So heavier, the mightier is a myth today. You require light, agile platform. Light, agile, lethal, survivable platform is the key. Fifth is the combined arms team, which I've spoken of. We have to move from integration to interdependence. That's the concept. It's it's just not IBG is just not our integrated battle groups. It's just not about grouping, getting the bunch of this thing from various thing, armor, infantry, AD, logistics together and saying this is IBG. IBG is a war fighting operational philosophy. It's not a grouping. Therefore, it needs to be addressed from a holistical frame of mind where technology, tactics, training, and bonding and integration is the key. The sixth point I wish to highlight is urban warfare and collateral damage is here to see. You've seen the development which taken place on our western sectors in the Punjab sector. Spaces have reduced. Uh, Urban warfare. That's a reality. So technology enablement and innovative tactics, we will have to evolve and prepare to fight in an urban warfare environment in future. Last but not the least is post sustenance and operational logistics. These are critical for effective tank deployment and success in operations. And therefore, we need a better understanding and integration both from the operational commanders as well as the logisticians to be able to seamlessly integrate both these in a proactive and a preemptive manner. It's not a follow up and support logistics, it's logistics through and through with every round that you fire. So these are very important. Now, if these are the sort of lessons, how do I look at the future role and employment of in the modern battlefields? So when we were young, uh, we read a lot about Richard Simkin, the famous tank warfare, Race to the Swift, Red Army. Then I still remember I had that book, Maneuver Warfare by William Lind. It was a Bible at time. I read it many a times. Good. But today things have changed. The era of World War II, of mass employment, deep maneuvers, going to projection areas, tank versus tank battles, has today changed. Today, we're talking of battle groups. We're talking of mission-oriented task forces. So therefore, well, why are we talking of this? Because three things have happened. One is the three-dimensional operational terrain has enlarged. Length, depth, and height. The entire envelope has got. Yet, within this enlarged envelope, the spaces have become increasingly contested. That's real. That is one thing. Second, the threat envelope uh, has also enlarged. The threats have multiplied in 360 directions. Today, it is not just 60 degrees of arc protection that we used to be taught at in tank technology course. Today, the threat envelopment is all 360 degrees. And therefore, we require a combined arms application because everywhere you can't put that sort of armor. You have to use technology and tactics. Uh, Technology has brought in a major change because today it is harder to hide and faster to kill. Therefore, you require human machine and machine unmanned machine teamings, which has to take place. You have to use AI in a very big way. Yet, technology does not win, people win. So, we must make sure that people are and technology grow together. Otherwise, it's wasted. So, if I could redefine the role, I would say one, tanks must become more responsive, more deployable, more agile, more versatile, more lethal, survivable, and sustainable platform. A whole lot of things out there. But that's all you must look at because you have to operate through the entire spectrum of conflict. And therefore, in the Indian context, a mix of medium category tanks and a light category platforms is imperative. That is very important. Second thing, tanks must provide ready and relevant land force capability to the force commander to be a part of a combined armed force. I'm not going to amplify this, but there's a future. And third, tanks must now increasingly, tanks are an instrument of offensive application. They must never be looked at as a defensive force. So they must provide a dominant land park maneuver capability with offensive orientation. And what do I mean by offensive? I mean that dislocation is the key for employment of tanks, whether it is physical dislocation, temporal dislocation, technological dislocation, or force dislocation, or moral dislocation. Look at the example of Ladakh sector in the Chishu, when the tanks appeared there. I think the more than the physical power, it was a moral and psychological dislocation that took. And that's how they should be employed. And today we have to look at tanks having strategic, operational, and tactical mobility for quick response deployment. You can't be taking like 12, 3 weeks to move a strike corps into an area. You have to, therefore, all this strategic, operational, tactical mobility are a key factor. So I think this is how I would sum up your question number one, sir.
Thank you very much, Jan Shivane, for that very large scope you covered and full of very deep insights and some seminal thoughts have jumped out of what you said. Each one of them worth pursuing by, I would say, people, tankmen and others looking at warfare today. You mentioned about the light tank in while talking. So from that, comes my next question, and that is that the light tank for the northern borders has become a reality. How do you see its utility in future conflicts? Ashok, please.
Okay. So, Indian military history is a testimony of the light tank doing the nation proud, right? World War II in Kohima, Stuart's and Sherman tanks, or 254 Indian Tank Brigade, successfully stalled the ingress of Chinese army. Then came partition, Zojila, 1948. Successfully employed Stuart tanks at a height of 11,575 feet. My regiment, 7th Light Cavalry, was the one which went to Zojila. And they saved Ladakh from being taken by the Pakis. It was an operation of innovation, uh, you know, uh, bravery, chivalry, and shock effect. Again, on the minds of the state. Similarly, Rajouri also, the armored cars and light tanks they won. Came 1962, AMX-13 light tanks were airlifted and fought along the infantry in the famous Battle of Gurung Hill. They were also taken to Bomdila and Dharam. Came 1965, AMX-13 were deployed in Nathula. 1971, both AMX-13 and PT-76 played a major role, especially in the liberation of Bangladesh. We all have read about the famous battle of Garibpur, how a squadron of PT-76 destroyed 14 American-made M24 Shafi tanks, much heavier and had better capabilities. So all that I'm trying to say by giving this background is that actually it's not introduction of light tank, it is reintroduction of light tank. Somewhere we lost our track for whatever reasons, we are not here to discuss that, but this void set in, and the one size fit all solution does not work in our operational terrain. But we only woke up when in 2016, if I'm right, yeah, we saw the Chinese T-15 tank, light tank, which came up there in that area, and then suddenly the Type 15, sorry, no, Type 15 Black Panther, I remember now. And then we realized that there are certain areas where our medium category tanks may not have the sort of a mobility, higher firing guns, or even turning radiuses to move up to those areas. So therefore, we require a light tank. And I think that was the period 2016-17. I again started this and got the approval of the MOD for the need of light tanks for the Indian Army as such. Particularly for the threats on the high altitude in the northern sector. So light tanks are thus evolved around three things. One is superior mobility, strategic operational tactics. We carried by aircraft fast, more than one, operationally be able to be transported from one place to the other, and tactically go through those narrow roads where you have a short turning radius. Okay. So superior mobility, in fact, I would say superior agility. Second is versatility and maneuverability, higher power to weight ratio, lower nominal ground pressure. These are required in those marginal terrains that we're talking about. The third thing is we still require lethal firepower. And today technology allows these guns, one of five gun, to have a missile being fired, through the gun. Then there's a requirement that you have to have high angle firing capability because these are not the planes. You want to shoot up at certain areas. So high angle capability was required, and you have to have a state of art electro-optical and communication system. So again, all that would be given in the light tank. You have to have a key issue which went against light tank was how will they survive today. Again, survival. We have moved from protection to survivability. And survivability is today more holistic. It's not just about adding armor. It's add-on armor, light active protection systems, maneuverability of that tank, cylinder, various things. So survivability is more holistic, more balanced, and more integrated than protection, and that is available in a light tank. And lastly, we also required some amphibious capability, both to add T to the offensive content and could procure operations. Thus, light tank, I think, is a very important aspect of our operational capability, not only in the northern sector, but just look at Punjab, marginal terrain, you see run-off cut, you see future, the protection of our island territories, you see requirement of amphibious operations, you see requirement of out-of-area contingencies, and even UN requirement. So that's how I think I would put the light tank into the perspective.
Thank you very much, Ashok, for that. And I would also like to say that in the Zila operation was a very classic one, where the technology, that is the engineering support provided by EME, came to the fore, and by removing the turrets and assembling them again at the heights, it's a very sterling example of technology leading to surprise on the battlefield.
Absolutely, Shivane. Absolutely. I think that was the first battle after independence, and a first battle which sent a loud message of combined arms team. Had the engineers not made those mule tracks into, class 5 or class 9 tracks overnight, and the EME helped in dismantling the turrets from the ground, and the infantry followed up. All these things again had reinforced that we should keep reminding ourselves that it's all about combined arms.
Exactly, and that's exactly what you spelled out so clearly in your first answer. And the second answer which you've given, when I was listening to it, it was emerging that you have really spelled out a huge number of qualitative requirements which people who are looking at, this very difficult task of settling on a particular type of QR for a tank can get lots of very wise information from that. And taking it on from there, while in service, you evolved the GSPS 2030, wherein you defined the Mechanized Forces Modernization Strategy. Kindly explain, Ashok, please.